Oh, Rory, you gonna let Daddy do his podcast?
Having a child is a lot like being on a big adventure. You're sleep deprived all the time, you struggle to look after yourself, but you don't mind because you're getting a higher sense of meaning, you're getting something out of it, something really quite special. Fourth thing is you're in the unknown, you don't know what's coming. You're scared sometimes, but you're never really lost. You know that you're moving in the right direction, and that's all you need. Today's episode's about being a dad and the future of the brand, I suppose, because a lot's changed. A lot does change when you have a kid. You change as a person, your priorities change, what you want out of life changes, what you're interested in changes in some ways, and it also stays the same, but it's just different afterwards. So we took her up a mountain the other day, Brecon Beacons. We got one in early. She was 2 weeks old on the day. And Emma was amazing, had a C-section in an emergency, and she was hiking absolutely fine, which was really, really impressive. And she told me when she was having enough, and we headed back, but she managed it, so that's pretty amazing. And it was really, really good to just be out with the baby in nature again and doing what we do in our free time, me and Emma. So we can still do that at the moment. The little baby seemed to enjoy it well enough. So that's that, and it's been quite good. The nights and the days, she's a very relaxed baby. She needs to be tended to about every 3 or 4 hours during the night, but in between those times we get to sleep pretty well. So not all babies are nightmares, as much as I thought they were before having one. During the day, she's fine. She's quite relaxed. She tends to just soothe herself and entertain herself. It's quite interesting. We put these little black and white cards in front of her because they're contrasting. They're about as contrasting as you can get. And we can just see her little brain wiring. That's all she can see at the moment, is the difference between black and white, light and dark. And she's fascinated by shadows. And so that's really cool to see. And they say as well, a baby changes every day. And that's true. They do. You don't want to miss a day. I always used to think that they were just babies, and then a few years later they were toddlers, and then they're adults. But no, there's a lot of change every day that happens. So really, this episode is about where things are going, because I'm not really sure at the moment where they're going. It's brought a lot to mind, the birth of my child, about fatherhood, and I've had a few episode ideas come to mind about that, about masculinity in general. What seems to have happened over the last 100 years is masculinity's taken a dip, I suppose. We've become quite reserved, quite domineering, maybe. The 2 world wars didn't help that. And so 2 generations ago, above me, it was the generation where the men didn't talk about feelings, and they were purely the provider and the head of the house. And that was fine at the time because, hey, you weren't getting shot at, so everything was fine. We don't need to bring up our problems because we're alive. And then what I seem to have noticed is the next generation was damaged by that, a generation of men who were out of touch with their feelings and were very career-driven, very work-focused because they didn't have their father's love. And then there's my generation now, who seem to be recovering from 100 years of whatever the hell's happened to masculinity. And what I see now is where it's going. It needs to go in a new positive direction, especially in the state of the world right now. And so I've got some ideas on it. Because what I've noticed in my time is many, many, many different dimensions of masculinity, many viewpoints. I've seen it not only in my own family and in my own life, but in other parts of the world. I've seen many different cultures' views on what a man should be and what they shouldn't be. And there's a lot of ideas that really need to be shared, I think. And what I've also seen is, because of this father gap I've had myself, I've been able to fill it with really good role models, either through podcasts or books, or role models in my own life. And so what I've done is, I suppose unconsciously, is compiled all these positive masculine influences. And now that I've got my own child, I can slot them all together, amalgamate them, and become that dad, that father that I think is everything a dad should be. So I really think that that's going to be quite a focus of this podcast, at least for a while. There's some really cool guests coming up, guest interviewees, where we're going to talk about this because they've got their own ideas on this. And it's not going to be, I'm a great dad and you're not, so look at me. It's going to be, this is a very hard thing, being a dad. This is extremely difficult. Here's how I navigate it, as well as normal life, as well as having a wife, a house to keep on top of, parents, roles, responsibilities, income, jobs, everything. This is how I personally navigate it. Because I do think I do a good job at the moment. It's only 2 weeks in, I know, but there's a lot to share from what I've seen in the world and what I've embodied. One of my biggest fears is becoming the dad who doesn't really do anything. They do 2 weeks a year on holiday and that's it. And they live to work and they have some time with their kids, but they're boring. They tend to wear sandals and shorts. And I think of the dad, if you've seen a show called Friday Night Dinner, that sort of useless, I don't know, dad figure. That's probably one of my worst fears, is becoming a settled dad. You talk about getting married and settling down. What poor choice of words that is. I don't think you should ever settle down with someone. You should work upwards together. You never go down. Don't marry someone and go down. You should work to move up together. And that's exactly what me and Emma do. We talk once a week, we communicate, we work out what each other is up to, what we want to do, and we move forward, we move upwards together constantly. We're constantly making each other better. And so I think my fear of becoming complacent and becoming boring and predictable is fueling that. So I definitely don't want to become that. And this is why we've taken Aurora to the Brecon Beacons a few days ago. So she was 2 weeks old. We took her there to get her into adventures early, because we desperately want to be parents who go on adventures, not just family holidays once a year, but we take them out. We go, we're fun, we're showing her how to grow as a person, we're teaching that resilience early on. So she may grow up to hate it, she may just want to sit indoors all day on her phone and do coding or something. That's fine, but we really, me and Emma, we really want to continue being adventurous people. And really, I suppose this is another direction the brand's going to go. I want to continue adventures. Obviously not as massive as hitchhiking to the other side of the world. It's just not feasible when you get to a certain point in life. Everyone who's done a big adventure, Alistair Humphreys cycling around the world, many other people, they do it in their early 20s because you're free then. You've got no ties, no bills, nothing like that. You can go off and do a massive adventure. But everyone, when you get to your 30s, you get responsible. You can't just go off and do whatever you want anymore. But you can still do what you want to do. It's just, it's harder, it's more difficult. You have to negotiate it with people you're responsible for, but you can go. And so I want to go on adventures. And that could be with Emma and this baby. And what I really see for the future is a new way of life where you are not just a parent who has a job and you go to sleep and you wake up and you go back to work and you carry on and you pay your bills and then you die at 75, 80. I see a family unit where you go on a little adventure, you grow a little bit, you challenge yourself, you make everyone better in the family, and you do get to do what you want. It doesn't have to be some massive thing, but you can do what you want to do. You just have to put your mind to it. It was very tough the other day in the Brecon Beacons. And again, I know she was only 2 weeks old and it might get a lot harder as we get older, but we had to plan it. We had to sit in the car for an hour, change the nappy, do the bottle feeding, everything, make sure she was regulated before we headed out. But we still did. We were okay. We managed to do it. And we will be doing it again at some point, probably very soon. So, third option, third way the brand could be going is really survival skills, but for life in general. So I came across a lot of survival situations on my big trip and on other adventures. Having to survive, having to get through the night, having to keep alive, but also having to communicate with the local people when I didn't speak their language. I had to make distance when I had no way to do so apart from relying on other people. And really this life that I have now, I have to navigate that. I have to get through the minimal responsibility of being an adult male. Beyond that, doing adventures, taking people out, running a charity, all these things that I love doing. That's after all of that, but it's how I get through that to the stuff that I want to do. Oh. And there's many ways I've found to survive day-to-day life. One of them is making sure Emma and I talk for at least 90 minutes a week, communicating, open, honest communication, telling each other what we've done badly, what annoys us about the other person, but what we've done well, what we like, what we want more of. Telling each other where we want to go in life, what we're thinking, what goals we've come up with, what's changing. Everything comes up once a week and then it's left in the past, or it's worked into the path forward with each other. And that just means that we stay on the same path rather than over the years going off on different directions, because you will grow apart from your married partner if you're not careful, because you're always changing as a person. Of course you're going to get different from the other person, but we don't want that. We want to grow together. And it's extremely productive and necessary. It's not just what people say therapy's like, where you can go if you can afford it. It's like, no, you need to talk to your partner once a week. We've gone 1 week before where we didn't talk. We thought we'd try not talking, and it wasn't good. We really struggled that week, and the week after we talked for 3 hours. So 90 minutes of conversation still came up the next week, as well as that 90 minutes. Sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's an hour and 15. It doesn't have to be exactly 90, but you do need to talk to the people you're close to regularly. And I've seen marriages fail more often than I've seen them succeed. And the big difference is that it's communication. Honest communication with the partner. Going back to reminding me of being on an adventure with a newborn baby, it reminds me of the first ever morning being properly alone in an unfamiliar land. I'd done adventures before this one. I'd done hitchhiking to Scotland with my friend Jack, hitchhiking to Luxembourg with Dylan, hitchhiking by myself to the south of France. But that was inside Europe. That was more familiar. I knew what was going on there. It wasn't a foreign land, really. It was very, very similar to the UK. But after that, I did a month in Morocco and Spain. And this was really the big one that prepared me for hitchhiking to Australia, because that was really, truly on my own, truly away from home. It was in a completely different continent in Africa. So I took a flight to Gibraltar, right on the south tip of Spain, rather than spending time going all the way through France again and all through Spain. Because what I would do is a little bit like a figure of eight shape. I'd go from the very south of Spain into Morocco, down to the bottom, back up to Gibraltar, and then up to Spain, and then return home. So rather than starting off in Spain and going all the way down, I thought I'd just go to Gibraltar and do an 8. The flight was incredibly cheap there. That was the main motivation. I got to Gibraltar, slept underneath a multi-storey car park. I found a little entrancey bit on a hill. There was a little bit where the road and the car park had separated, so I snuffled in under there, and it was really big under there, and it was a really, really good night's sleep. No one else knew I was in there. Very good. So next day, wandered down to the ferry terminal, I believe, where all the truck drivers were, all the Moroccan, Algerian truck drivers were ready to go back over to Africa. And it took me a while to get there. I think I actually had to hitchhike from Gibraltar back into Spain to get to the ferry port. Once I got there, there was this random ticket salesman out on the street, and he tried really, really hard to sell me a ferry ticket across to Morocco. And he was really, really hard to say no to. I actually couldn't say no to him, and he got me into his ticket shop and said, "Oh, yeah, buy a ticket." And I had to basically say I got no money to get out of there. It was very stressful. I was only 23 at the time. I think I would have been a bit more assertive if it happened now, but I didn't really know the world yet. I didn't really know how to be like that. And so, anyway, managed to hide out, get to the ferry port. Loads and loads of truck drivers just waiting. And I just thought, no one's going to be leaving now, so had to find somewhere to sleep. But it was a very dangerous little city in Spain. I cannot remember the name, but it really made me feel uncomfortable. I didn't even feel safe sleeping in a little park or behind some trees. So all I could find was a portable toilet that I could lock myself in. That was the main reason it was safe, was because I could lock myself in this portable toilet. And it was extremely uncomfortable. It was the most uncomfortable night's sleep I'd ever had. Because they're not designed to be falling asleep in, are they? They're designed to, well, keep you awake, because I don't want homeless people in them, and also people at festivals on drugs are probably going to pass out in them. So I managed to get sleep. It was about half an hour at a time. Every time I woke back up, though, some part of me had fallen asleep, like my leg had gone numb, my arm had gone numb, so I had to keep moving. It was very stressful, but I woke up about 5 a.m, walked out and thought, I'm going to try and find a lift now to Morocco. And I did, first one I asked. Took me across. We spent a couple of hours doing the paperwork. The way he managed to do it was to say that I was his second driver. That's how he got me on there. And that entitled me to a free meal and everything on the ferry, which was amazing. And it felt very out of place there, very out of place. Among all the African truck drivers speaking Arabic to each other, there was this random white boy there with his backpack. So very out of place, very funny. And made it to Morocco. Said goodbye to him. He drove me a bit further in to Tangier, but after that had to find a place to sleep again because it was night time. So walked up this really, really big hill. Thought I'll get away from the road, get away from the town, get safe. And found a really good spot, nice and flat, nice and protected. But I heard a really horrible dog barking quite nearby. And it turns out there was someone's house just above me. So I had to move again. And managed to find another spot, so that was good. And I had some phone signal, so I was just messaging people, trying to comfort myself, I suppose. I felt very out of place, very scared, very intimidated by this new place, and I wasn't sure I was going to be okay, because I'd never really been that far away from home on my own and that vulnerable. It's always been in a car or in a hotel. But it was suddenly completely vulnerable in a foreign land at the mercy of the people there. And I didn't know what they were going to be like. I didn't know if they were going to be friendly or hostile or rude or anything like that. So I just fell asleep, having messaged a few people and hoped for the best in the morning. And so when I woke up the next day, I woke up feeling quite similar to how I feel now in the present day, in unfamiliar territory, not sure if it's going to be okay, but not alone. I'm not alone now. I was then. All I had to comfort me was people on the other side of a message, but there was no one else there with me in the country. But there is now. There's Emma, there's my mum, there's Emma's dad, there's friends who live nearby. And that really is the key difference in this situation compared to that one. A support network. I never really understood the importance of a support network until very recently. Never really had that stable a support network in life. I've always moved home quite frequently, but marrying Emma, moving to Gloucester, getting on the mortgage, that was a very, very good move because it's a very settling feeling, very stable. So, and also in Morocco, I was very, very sleep deprived. I was very stressed. I didn't get very good sleep. But I was very, very excited to get going and to explore this new land. And that is, again, how I feel now. Very sleep deprived, but very excited. And that's where we are, really. So the next day, it was interesting. It was very scary, and it went very wrong. I woke up, packed away, walked down the hill, and started to hitch a lift, found a truck driver. He took me along. He only spoke Arabic. But we stopped off at a couple of service stations, got some coffees, that kind of thing, and I was trying to talk to him the whole time, and I think the problem had occurred because all this while I'd been hitchhiking before this time. No one had ever expected any money because it was in the culture to not expect money, but in Africa, when you hitchhike, it's equivalent to taking a taxi, and so he did expect payment, but he couldn't tell me until we left each other. He couldn't tell me. He tried to tell me. Looking back, I could see that he was trying to communicate this with me. He kept writing down a number, which was obviously asking for this figure in cash, but he kept pointing to the wheel, saying like, "Oh, this and that," But because I had no idea that that's what he would be asking for, I just didn't expect it. So he gave up asking eventually. But as we were pulling up to the final place, as we were approaching the final place he was going to drop me off, we were still on the motorway, and he realised that I wasn't going to pay him, so he actually just left me there in the middle of the motorway with no means of getting anywhere else, it was scary for a few seconds, but as soon as it had happened, I was okay. I had everything with me. I wasn't lost. I knew where I was. And there were houses around, and there was a nice woodland, and I just thought, I'm just going to go sleep in that woods tonight. I'm going to be fine. I'll get through the night, and then I'll carry on the next day. And that's exactly what I did. And so, as long as you can be okay in that state of chaos, you'll be fine in anything, really. So, we'll stop there for today. Thanks again for listening. It's good to be back. See you next week.